Hey everyone, welcome. Hope you're doing well. We're continuing the Sealed Nectar. Alright, let's dig into it. We were dealing with the Zubair fort got taken down, so let's continue about it. Shortly after this battle, the Jews moved out to Ubay fort. We got the Ubay fort now, and fortified themselves inside. The same events reoccurred. The Muslims besieged the new site for 3 days, and then the great Muslim hero Abu Dujana Simak bin Karshah al-Ansari, okay, let's put a little annotation next to him, of the Red Head Band, led the Muslim army and broke into the fortress. Okay, so they got through the gates. So the last fort, Azubair fort, was taken down because the Jewish spy told the Prophet, peace be upon him, there was an underground water source that they could cut off. So the Jews leave that spot, they go to a new place, the Ubay fort, they get busted in there too, and Dujana led the attack, conducted fierce military operations within, and forced the remaining Jews to flee for their lives into another fort, An-Nizar. Okay, another fort. An-Nizar was the most powerful fort, and the Jews came to establish the conviction that it was too immune to be stormed. So they considered it a safe place for their children and women. Braun, who is the character of, he's like one of the coolest sellsword characters in Game of Thrones. He says, give me 10 good men and I'll impregnate the bee, right? Like saying, you don't need an army sometimes, you just need a set of good men. And then Ramsay, Ramsay Bolton, when he goes into Stannis' camp and lights the fires, which cause chaos, he contends as well, you don't need a whole army, you just need couple good men. So here it's almost very similar, right? Where these people are like a little angry at that time, thinking like, oh, we're gonna go to this fort, that fort, and it's impenetrable. But as history shows, if the Empire of Troy can fall with its legendary walls, then indeed many fortresses can fall. An-Nizar was the most powerful fort, so they considered it a safe place for their children and women. The Muslims, however, were not depressed but dragged on the siege. But because it was standing at an elevated... Because it was standing... Sorry, fam, the pages are thin. Position, the fort was secure. The Jews inside were too cowardly to meet the Muslims in open fight, but rather hurled a shower of arrows and stones on the attackers. So they didn't want to come out and, engage. It's kind of just stay... That seemed like their strategy they used before. Stay behind the walls, wait it out, see what you can do. Considering this situation, the Prophet, peace be upon him, ordered that catapults be used, and these proved effective and caused cracks in the walls, providing an easy access into the heart of the fort, where the Jews were put to chaos. Okay, so they didn't come out, so catapults. I love... Every scene that has catapults in every war movie is so cool. It's terrifying if you're on the receiving end, but it's probably so adrenaline rushing to see this, like, who was it? Oh, was it? Yeah, it was in the Gallic Wars that the Gauls was. I can't remember the name of which Gaulish tribe did it. But they lit balls of wheat on fire and it would be rolling down, right? They'd lunge this and it would roll down through the battlefield, just creating all this fire and chaos. I mean, every scene of catapults is amazing. And so, look, they had the catapults here. The last one was the water well. So, all examples of the building itself is not enough to safeguard you. They fled in all directions, leaving behind their women and children. With these series of military victories, the 1st Division of Khaybar was totally reduced, and the Jews in the other minor fortresses evacuated them and fled to the 2nd Division. So, I wonder if they really left their children, because it seems like what would be the point, right? Well, I don't think they would leave maybe some did, but you could, of course, love is love. You're gonna... City's under attack. War is breaking out. I mean, moms are gonna be like, we're out of here, right? So, even if some men left their women and children, the moms is just straight out of there, right? Survive. Wow. With these series of military victories in the first division of the Haibar, so the vision of the Haibar, I'm going to put that. So the next part, okay, the second part of Haibar conquered. When the Prophet, peace be upon him, along with his army, moved to this part of Haibar, Al-Katiba, okay, here we go, he laid heavy siege to it for 14 days with the Jews fortifying themselves inside their forts. Wow, so remember the other two forts took 3 days to fall. This one, the people have been holding out for 14. When he was about to use the catapults, the Jews realized that they would perish. Therefore they asked for a negotiable peace treaty. There is one controversial point in this context. Was this part of Haibar with its 3 forts conquered by force? Ibn Ishaq clearly stated that Al-Qumus fort was conquered by force. Al-Waqidi, on the other hand, maintained that 3 forts were taken. Okay, so how many forts essentially then? Through peace negotiations and force, if any, was restored to only the hand fort over to the Muslims. Resorted to only to hand the fort over to the Muslims. The 2 other forts surrendered without fighting. Well, I mean, either way, you get the fort, right? They took them down, they got it, but I guess that gets into the sensibilities of people wanting the legacy not to be purely militaristic, but indeed diplomatic, right? So I think that's why they put that caveat in there of its distinction, but also just wanted to be historically correct. Negotiations. Ibn Abul Haqiq was dispatched to Allah's Messenger, peace be upon him, to negotiate the surrender treaty. The Prophet, peace be upon him, agreed to spare their lives on condition they evacuate Haibar and the adjacent land, leaving whatever gold and silver they had in their possession. Okay, so gonna tell them, hey, surrender a treaty, evacuate Haibar, and leave the valuables behind. I don't think many would, right? I mean, leave their gold behind. That's usually what they're gonna take with them. However, he specified that he would give up any commitment if they concealed anything. Ooh, so if we catch you concealing anything, then the deal is broken. Let's see. Shortly afterwards, the forts were handed over to the Muslims, and all Haibar was reduced and brought under the influence of Islam. Okay, so they got the forts. It's taken. In spite of this treaty, Abdul Haqiq's 2 sons concealed a leather bag full of jewels. And money belonging to Huyay bin al-Akhtab, who carried it with him when Banu Nadir had been exiled from Medina. Kinana bin Arabi, who had hidden the bag somewhere, was persistent in his denial, and so he killed when he saw the bag was discovered and his dishonesty was proven. Okay, so he was executed. So Kinana, he was just like, hey, I don't know, but Nadur was exiled. He had been exiled. Persisted in his denial. Abul Hukak's 2 sons were killed in recompense for breaching the covenant, and Safiya, Huyay's daughter, was taken as a captive. Okay, so they broke the rules. Must have been a substantial amount of jewels, but either way, you gotta resist taking that. Distribution of spoils. In accordance with the agreement already concluded, the Jews were to evacuate Haibar, but they were anxious to keep on cultivating the rich soil and fine orchard for which Haibar was famous. They therefore approached the Prophet, peace be upon him, with the request that they be allowed to cultivate their lands, and they would give half of the produce to the Muslims. Muhammad, peace be upon him, was kind enough to accept their request. That's a pretty good offer, right? If it's got a good vineyard, got a good soil, you don't need to torch it. Caesar, he torched a couple places in Gaul, right? Just completely, there is no going back. It's getting tortured through fire, right? But here, clearly, it's like, no, you give half is a substantial percentage, right? I mean, that's not a small chunk of change there. I wonder what kind of food they grew. Must have been pretty valuable then. Fine orchard. Was it like... It's probably grapes.